So to kick us off with our kind of first question, I wanted to point it to you, Andy. You've obviously been an executive producer on many, many films, but usually it's attached to directing or some other, maybe writing or whatever it might be. This is the first one, if I'm not mistaken, that you've been an executive producer on something but have not been in the director's seat. Is that correct? Why this film? Why did you get involved? Why the partnership?
You know, executive producing something you don't direct is so much more relaxing. So it's like being on a plane where somebody else's kids are good. No. But for this, it's really satisfying. At Kingdom Story Company, when we started, the desire was to create a platform that was run by artists for artists, that we kind of facilitated other storytellers. But it was that scary moment of handing off the baton to other storytellers and kind of backing away. You know, this year has been about facilitating those. So having a movie like Ordinary Angels in theaters right now, just certified fresh yesterday on Rotten Tomatoes, and John Gunn, the director, just killed it. And then with this one, Joel and I have been best friends for about 10 years. And when I first met him, his dad, who you saw portrayed in the film, grabbed me, shoved me into their dressing room and said, "This is my son, he wants to act." And he said, "Remember him." And we became friends, and along the way, we dreamed a little bit together. And he brought this story to me a little over a year ago, and I read the script, and it moved me profoundly. And then he said, by the way, I want to co-direct this, I want to play my father in the film, and I want to film it in 3 months. And I said, "You're absolutely nuts. But you're crazy enough that I think you can pull it off." And so they assembled a team, and it was a true underdog story. Shot it just... I mean, it was amazing to watch it come together, but it was this communal effort, and I got to be kind of more the grandpa on set watching it take place. And on the final day, I got to pull, you know, Richard, the director, and I pulled Joel, the co-director, together, and I said, "Joel, you've always said you wanted to be a filmmaker one day. Well, you don't have to say that that's a dream one day. You are one. You're in the club. Welcome to the club, man. You pulled it off." And, you know, it was a cool moment for all of us that, you know, have dreams of telling stories. And I don't think you'd be around this film festival if you don't. It's really cool to see one fully realized, and that's what this story is about. So satisfying.
Well, thank you very much for your input and
Andy
your guidance.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Andrew David Erwin.
What about, why aren't we best friends? You said, Joel, you left me out of that. I mean,
Because you live an extra hour away from my house. I keep inviting you.
Who knew the proximity was the very thing that's in the way of friendship?
It is a
I'm so
requirement.
sorry, Andy. But next up, Mariah, I had a question for you, and that is this. Obviously, films are very, very difficult to make. I'm sure many of you know this. They're very expensive. They're very difficult. They're difficult on families. I mean, our film didn't really go that long. We were probably out of, nearly a month or so. We were gone 6 weeks. For others doing prep and post, a little bit longer than that. It's a difficult thing, and when you think about you're trying to make a film about faith, and you're trying to make a film about the strength of family, the last thing you want to go wrong is your family fails while you're making a film about such. But Mariah, you had a very interesting, a very special role on film, on set, and while we were making the film, and that is you just assembled a prayer team together. Why did you do it, and what was that experience like for you?
Thank you for that question, favorite brother-in-law.
Look at that.
Hey!
There's another brother here somewhere else.
Don't tell Daniel.
Actually, our brother Daniel's here somewhere, so you've just created problems.
I love you too, Daniel. Speaking of family, most of my family hails from a border town called El Paso, and so I feel so happy to be amongst all these Texans. Thank you guys for showing up. This is really cool. I feel like I'm with family. So my role on set was really to build a prayer shield. I'll confess, I'm not great at praying. Sometimes I don't feel like I really know how to do it properly. Andy has given great advice that you've got prayer and you've got posture, and sometimes I feel like I just posture my heart to, like, God, please help with X, Y, and Z. And part of the reason why I wanted to build a prayer team around our crew, our actors, my husband, is because there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes down on film sets. I'm new to the film industry, and something that I've seen is that miracles happen every day. down to there was a day that we needed sunlight and it was raining and stormy, and I emailed the prayer team. I said, pray for sunlight, and you guys, the skies parted. It was the weirdest thing. And so I just saw miracle after miracle, and I think my heart in doing that was really because I believe in the story of this movie. Yes, it chronicles my in-laws' story, but you'll see in this movie, my mother-in-law, Helen, she used her voice to speak power over the fear of her children. My sister-in-law, Rebecca St. James, she used her voice to sing power over the poverty and the situation that their family was in. So I think this film really covers the power and the influence of a woman's voice, and I hope for all my sisters out here that when you watch this film, you leave theaters with a deeper appreciation and understanding of the power of the resonance and the frequency of your own voice.
That's great.
Hey, Luke.
I'm in love with this woman.
There we go, there we go. So we're going to play another scene. We call this the fax machine scene. You're going to understand why. There was a moment for, obviously, our father who went through a lot of struggle, and this kind of is one of those scenes. It's kind of in the crux of the film where there's been a lot disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. So go ahead and hit that scene. That is, speaking of directing of photography and just the look of this film, I mean, it's particularly that last shot. That oneer is just absolutely beautiful. Johnny Derango, an excellent, excellent DP. We were very, very fortunate to have him be a part of this project. He is more talented than we deserved, and I love that. But I love your heart particularly, and I wanted to just give you the opportunity. You've worked on a lot of films. You've worked on a lot of much bigger budget films, but you kind of had something take place where you kind of had a moment where you're like, man, I gotta shift things. I gotta turn things around. I want to do slightly different work. Could you just explain to people why the change? We worked on a lot of Mel Gibson films. We're talking about big films. Why'd you choose to work on this one? And yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely. I've been doing this about 20 years, or 20 years at the time, and I had just come off another film that for many, many reasons sort of broke me. It took me to a place that I'd never been, and I came back to LA, and I tried to wrap my head around where I was in my career, what I was doing, and did I want to do movies anymore? And so for about 3 months, I sat there and just prayed about it. And at some point, I just felt God say, reach out to Andy Erwin. And I reached out to Andy, and within a couple weeks, he introduced me to these guys, and 2 weeks later, I was back in the same city where I'd shot that movie that broke me, shooting this film. And it was just such a moment of following that voice, that tiny, quiet whisper.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just to give some folks just a little bit more context, even just on what makes a good DP and what makes a not so good DP in your opinion?
Yeah, for me in particular in this project, I'd seen a lot of films in the same space that I didn't love the way they looked. And so when I came into this, I wanted to approach it as a mainstream DP, bringing my talents to this space. And Joel and I had some great conversations, and Richie early on, where I referenced movies like Blinded by the Light and Sing Street, things that really spoke to me that weren't faith-based films. And I wanted to infuse that into it. And I think we got there. I mean, I'm really proud of the way it all came together.
Yeah, that's amazing. And speaking of soundtracks, obviously you guys just saw that scene. It's a very, very powerful scene. And one of the things I often think about soundtracks is they manipulate my feelings and my emotions, right? And Brent, you're one of the more unique people that I know in this space, in that you're a director in your own realm.
Directed Jesus Revolution,
Jesus
everyone.
Revolution, that's right,
Come
yes.
on. And scored it.
And to be totally honest, I don't know many other people that direct and score things, but it's a very unique perspective that you have, because you can see a film, you can kind of know what you need to achieve, and then you can go make the music to accomplish that. How did you get to the point of being able to direct and score, and why? What was the kind of the thought process behind scoring this film?
Thanks, man. First of all, shout out to Josh Walsh, wherever you are. We love you. We're glad all you guys are here, too.
Producer of the film.
He's watching the Oscars in Nashville right now. By
Yes,
the way.
we love that guy. No, the way I describe it, and Joel gets a big kick out of this, but I'm a musician who happens to make films for a living. So in the musical world, you've got lyricism, you've got rhythm, you've got beat, you've got loud parts of music and quiet parts of music. It's all the same in film. So there's a musicality to the movies that I just love. So it was a natural progression. They're like two languages that conjugate the verbs the same way. Like they speak to each other. So I think as a musician, I really am able to bring like a musicality to all of it. So ultimately, when I wanted to direct, I think it was an excuse to make some work and get to put music on it at the end. That's kind of how I describe it.
One of the things I love about what you said, Brent, when we started this process is that there's a sort of symbiotic, magical thing that happens when you take a motion picture and you write unique music, because a lot of this is we use temporary score to kind of piece it together initially, and you write unique music to it, and the way that the music, the intention of the music kind of speaks to the picture. I just find that fascinating. The other thing I'll say about Brent is I need to apologize and thank Brent McCorkle because we sent probably hundreds of hours, or I should say I sent, of voice memos to Brent just singing like ideas and melodies.
You broke him.
I did break him at some level. And this was one of them. This was one of the scenes I remember.
Will you ever work with us again, Brent? Will you
Yes.
ever work with us again?
We're putting you on the spot.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You've
You
heard it
heard it
here.
here.
We're recording this, everyone, so you've heard it here. But I remember this specific scene, us going back and forth and like humming melodies and just sounding like, broken birds sort of singing these melodies to each other. So talk just real quickly for me, because I'm interested, about your process of like how you approach actually like theme and finding a way to inject unique natures into a film like this,
Well, I want to thank you guys. If you listen to any of my previous work, I kind of hide in the scores. I want them to be very muted and understated. I just want you to feel it. I don't necessarily want you to hear music. But you pushed me to there's places where you're going to hear the music in this film. So I thank you. I think this might be the first score people are like, hey, I like your music, man, because I've hidden a lot of my scores kind of almost as underscores. So I think for me, theme is really important. So I'm a maximalist when it comes to emotion, but I'm a minimalist when it comes to the actual music in a film. So you kind of pushed me to, broadcast the music a little bit more, and I think it really did work. So for me, man, I'm about the emotion. I'm about how the scene hits you, and the more I can hide the music in the scene to support, that's that's my go-to, So I don't know if that answers the question.
I'll add something really I'm excited about from my executive producer position is there's a group of filmmakers. I think for those of us that are filmmakers, it's really easy to kind of get obsessed with just your own story. But this is a group of filmmakers that we've all breathed into each other's work. And it's amazing the things that you can accomplish when you don't care who gets the credit. And so for Brent, as a very accomplished director, to be able to step in and say, no, I'm here to do the score for your vision. Richie has written on a lot of our projects. And for him to step in and co-direct this, and then, it's just we all breathe into each other. So collaboration is so important to us raising the bar in faith film.
Well, count me as one who's been emotionally manipulated by your soundtracks, all right? Because it works very, very well, amazingly. So bravo. We're going to go to another scene. We call this the Christmas scene. And when we first came to America, we thought that Santa had forgotten our address, all right? That's what Mom and Dad were kind of telling us. And this is about this kind of an amazing miracle that took place in our family in those early days of coming to America. So Richie, you're up next. Richie is obviously the co-writer and co-director, and obviously everybody up here has had a wonderful role. And as Andy, I thought you said it well. It's making films is a team sport, and if you want to make films, learn to work together. But Richie, if it wasn't for you, I don't think this film exists. You had an original vision, for this story, and I just wanted to give you a moment just to tell people what was, obviously we've known each other for a while. We've known each other for a lot of years. I think you started working on this script 3.5 years ago. What was your original vision for how do I take a family story and make it into a compelling movie that isn't just a movie, but a movie that matters?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for asking that. And I just want to say really quick, as a person of faith and as someone who grew up in Texas through my childhood and my teens and past my 20s, it's really wonderful to be back in the Holy Land.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, can we get a yeehaw?
yeah, so it's wonderful to be back. But yeah, so, about 3.5 years ago, I worked with the Smallbones on another project that we're hoping one day we will get to do, but some circumstances had caused us to pivot, and they were talking to me and saying, we're really interested in doing a film based on our family story. And a lot of times when people come to you with a project like that, it can be scary because people will come to you and say, oh, I have this story and it happened to me and I think it'd be really interesting. And you listen and you're like, oh yeah, that's interesting, but it's really not that interesting. But as I heard more and more of their story, I found it just really, really compelling. But then also from a filmmaking standpoint, you're looking for the moments in a story that really happened that translate to major sort of structural movie beats. And as I was listening to the story, I was just really emotionally moved. And I did see that there were just really tangible, powerful movie moments. And then I think, we ventured and explored different avenues for telling the story, but where things really seemed to click. In fact, at one point, we went down an iteration for a while, Joel, where it was going to be kind of from Rebecca's point of view.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I actually remember feeling excited about that and going down the road with that. But something that always felt a little uneasy to me is, well, what do you do with Helen? And I wasn't quite sure. And I was actually even praying about this because I knew motherhood was important to Rebecca. I knew it was obviously very important to Helen. I remember praying I'm worried a little bit about shortchanging the Helen character. And for some reason, I really want this movie to honor motherhood and mothers, and I was praying about that somehow, even though we were going this way, it would somehow do those things. And then at one point, I had a call that seemed to be going in a frustrating direction, because y'all had read stuff I'd written so far, and you're like, this isn't quite working, but we were talking to Luke, and Luke thinks that maybe it should be from Helen's point of view, and that it should be called Unsung Hero. And normally that would be a really frustrating moment for a screenwriter who'd kind of gone down this road, but it was an answered prayer.
Sorry, Richie, they've found me. I've got to go.
Okay.
All right, carry on.
But yeah, I mean, it was kind of an answered prayer to have, and ideas come from anywhere. When the right idea hits, that just seemed to click, and that's kind of the road we went down.
Another question for you. Obviously, you've written a lot of scripts. Some get made. Some don't, which is probably that's probably the most frustrating part about the film industry is you have high hopes for some things and some things don't get made. When you see this movie, are you proud of it?
I am, and it's interesting because I've seen it so many times now, but I think each time, or I'll go through phases where when I watch it, different things move me very deeply. I think I'm in a phase right now where what continues to resonate and make me a little bit teary-eyed.
The eyes sweat a little bit?
Yeah, is just the miracles. And there's obviously just the straightforward miracles of, a family sees a need that your family had in real life and then they acted. But just the way that there's sort of miracles in your life that can't be orchestrated that way. They can really only be, like the proverb says, in his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord directs his steps. And the way I continually see that in your story is just really still moves me even after many, 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 many viewings.
Yeah. Well, know this, we're very proud of you and an
thank you.
excellent job on that project.
It's been an absolute honor to help tell your story.
Yeah. And then Parker, look, I'm going to ask a very broad question because I just fundamentally don't know how you do it. How do you edit a movie? And I know that this is not like a master class necessarily. I'm sure you could do it because you are a master. But, I mean, I'm sure you guys know this, but there is take after take after take. Sometimes 8, 9 of the same thing. And it's your job to figure out what's best. What's kind of just your mental process of taking some, you can put a film together, but to make it excellent is a different story.
Also, Parker has Ordinary Angels, the Hilary Swank, John Gunn film that's in theaters right now. Your very own Parker Adams edited that film, so go see it. Go see it. Okay.
So I've teed you up. How do you do it? How do you go
First
about
of all, I just guess. Every single take, ultimately, you never know. Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys, first of all, for having me on a panel. I think this might be the first time an editor has ever been on a panel, not in the editing room, right? You know.
We let you out occasionally.
Yeah.
We thought about putting a computer back here for you to actually be editing, and it's just wave at you.
Well, you notice I didn't have my own microphone still. It's a progression.
Don't get greedy.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the next 23 minutes and talk to you about this because I need to speak for all editors of all time. You know, it's a unique challenge, and I think it's a fun puzzle. There's so many different elements that you're looking at to try to determine what's going to work, and oftentimes even your favorite moments or favorite takes might not work together, and so you're really trying to find, Brent was talking about the synergy of kind of the way that music works in movies and the way that, you have all these different moments that have to work together, and sometimes even the best moment that works on set, I don't know how often I have a director or a producer talk to me about a moment that happened on set. It was the greatest take, and when you get into the room and you see it, on the screen, in the environment that you're going to be watching the movie, it's not the same. And so much of it is about really just taking all the pieces and seeing how they work together. You were talking about 8 to 9 takes, whatever. There are times when you're looking at a single scene that might just be a 1 to 2 minute scene in the movie that's going to be 9 to 10 hours of footage that you're really going through to determine what needs to be there. And that's really where a lot of the hard decisions are made. But yeah, I don't know if that.
Do you enjoy it still? Obviously, you've edited a lot of things at this point. Do you still enjoy it? I mean, what is the thing that makes you keep coming back to editing? I mean, it's a difficult job, but if you don't do your job well, we don't have a good film.
I think one of the things that surprised me about editing, it wasn't. I didn't go on a journey and on a quest to become an editor. I want to be a filmmaker. We all do. And editing is an area that kind of the Lord put in my lap with opportunity and just showing me how my brain worked with editing. And I think one of the things you realize is that there's the journey and then there's the arrival. And oftentimes the journey can be incredibly frustrating and really difficult, and you want to bang your head against the wall. You're sitting in a room for 12, 14 hours a day in the dark, and it can get frustrating. But when you get to the end of a scene and it really you see it move people, it really can be so incredibly rewarding. And one of the things I just never thought about editing before getting into it was how much opportunity and creative influence you would be able to have over the film in a way that you get to sit with the director and the producers, and you get to have the creative conversations that I never really thought I was going to be having so early in my career.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, we're going to show one last scene for you guys, and we're going to finish with a question to Tiffany. But this next scene we're going to show you is, we call this, ironically enough, the Burn the Ship scene. And it sounds like it's this massive nod to the song, and it in some cases is, but it's so much more than that. Our father had just gone through a very, very difficult moment where he actually couldn't get out of bed for a couple of days. And this is how Helen, our mother's character, kind of rallies the troops. So show them that clip. I remember reading that scene in the script, and I was like, I don't know, Richie, this feels a little on the nose. And then I watch that scene nearly every time, and it nearly brings me to tears because I think it illustrates a lot of what we go through in life. There's a lot of things we all walk through. And there's a lot of things we got to leave in the behind, and there's a lot of things that we got to burn. So it's a very, very well done, very well done. We're going to come to Tiffany here, and one of the things I've said, and this is just me, this isn't gospel by any means, but if you want to have a successful, run at theaters, I say you've got to have two things. You need to have a good movie, and then you need to market it well. And hopefully we've got at least a good movie. Now we're at the challenge of we've got to market it well. I think I heard, was it Jason Blum says, like, marketing is 60, 70, 80% of the success of a film comes down to marketing. And obviously Tiffany is in charge of doing just that. And look, we're making faith movies. You've got Hollywood out there. They got more money. They got more power than what we do. But yeah, we've got to figure out a way how to break through. How do you go about doing that? How do you market a faith-based film?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to all of you. I've never been to Austin, and your city is lovely. I've had such a great time. And like all good marketers, I wore my Willie Nelson t-shirt in honor of your city. I thought, like, I love Austin would be too on the nose, so I did an homage. But the biggest challenge we have marketing faith-based films is getting over the stereotype that they are subpar, that they aren't as good as regular movies. And one of the things that is such a thrill to work with Kingdom Story Company and our partnership with Lionsgate is that when we walk out of our movies, we hear people say, that movie was amazing, not that movie was amazing for a faith-based film. And it's our job to help you, really to equip you all to be our ambassadors. There's no better ambassador for these films than the people that already love Joel and Luke, but we have to tell a bigger story than that. It can't just be up to the fans of For King and Country. It's got to be people that love stories about family, about this family they do not give up on each other. They do not give up on their faith in God when things are incredibly difficult. And we have to tell that story with excellence in everything we do. And Lionsgate is a great partner because they help bring a studio perspective. They help with, bring money and influence behind these films so we can have media campaigns and we can have television and we can have great opportunities all the time for this film. And making that authentic connection between the movie and the message, finding people like you all and making sure you're aware and that you feel ownership of the film. This film is for you and by you. It's for people of faith and beyond, but it's by people of faith. And the best thing we can do is do it with excellence. And I think we strive for that all the time in everything we do.
And just to go a little bit further on that, like what are some of the tangible ways of actually doing those things? Meaning, when you look back on some of the other campaigns that you've run some very successful campaigns. What are some of the things, because I've always said this, we've got obviously a lot of people that come to us and say, well, I can't go make that movie because I don't have the money, or I can't go make that music because I don't get to work with that producer. And one of the things I always say is, guys, yes, those are difficult things, but creativity is free, and we have to use that. Yep. But in your world, like, what are some things that maybe you have an advantage over Hollywood in? Like, what are some of those things?
I have a great example of that. We started, and Mariah talked about the power of prayer on this film. We started doing live prayer streams. We call it a prayer cast. We do them for about 5 weeks leading up to release. They're live. You all can join us. They're from 12 to 12:30 Central Time on Fridays. We have actors, directors, filmmakers. We started with Jesus Revolution because that whole movie was about revival, and we thought, what else could we do for this film? We could pray for it. We could just ask people to pray for the film and the impact of the film. So we started doing these live prayer casts, and I think we did 8 of them maybe for Jesus Revolution, and we had a total of about 153,000 people tune in for that. And we just wrapped up the one for Ordinary Angels, and we had 453,000 people watch those prayer casts, live streams, which is amazing. And we're not praying for we want the movie to be successful. We have to run a business. We have to make more films. But we're praying that lives will be changed, that people will be impacted by these stories. And it's really powerful to do that. So follow us at Unsung Hero Movie and tune in to our prayer cast, which will start a week from Friday. And it's a great opportunity to be involved in a really authentic way. So that's one way.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for that. Well, we should give a hand to everyone on the panel here. Just say thanks. All of your insight, obviously super interesting. We're meant to do some music in a few minutes, but I thought maybe, Joel, you could close us out.
Well, like you said, there is a band coming up in a few minutes. They're sort of a B-, but, you know, stick around if you want to check them out. Hey, Luke Smallbone, everyone. Moderator Luke Smallbone. A couple closing thoughts for us, and then we'll reset the stage. Luke and I are sons of a powerful mum. We are brothers to two very creative and kind sisters. We are husbands to, Courtney's obviously not represented here today, but we're husbands to two women who partner with us deeply, who are courageous and face challenges head on. And one of the grand opportunities we had with this film was to lift up not only our mum, not only our sister, but to lift up women. You know, we've just celebrated a monumental day on behalf of women 2 days ago, and I'm deeply proud as a man of faith to stand before you, to have obviously Tiffany and Mariah on this panel, but also Amelia and so many women, Maria, Ali, so many women on this team on a wider scale that are lifting this picture up. I also just want to say to you now, I dub you our unsung hero, Austin advocates, from this day forward, okay? We got 6 weeks, 6 weeks and a little change as to when this film is released theatrically through Lionsgate across this country. It's on April 26th, which actually happens to be our mum and dad's 26th wedding anniversary. 29th.
No.
49th. 49th.
Once again, we don't read well,
I'm just
and
making
we don't
up numbers.
obviously do numbers very well either. So
49th.
49th.
26th of April, 49th wedding
It's been
anniversary.
A long day, guys.
It's been a long
day.
week. And I'll say this is, there were so many, we talked about miracles, there's so many miracles that you're going to see in front of the camera as you just witnessed. There were so many miracles behind the camera as well, and that was one of them. Adam Fogelson, who runs Lionsgate, he picked the date because it was in proximity to Mother's Day, and then about a week later we were on the phone with Mum, and we said, hey, they've picked the date, it's April 26th, and we'd forgotten. And she said, oh, you know that's our 49th wedding anniversary, right?
She sounds just like that, actually.
To which we replied, yes. That's why we did it. But we've just seen so many miracles along the way, and we've gone as far as to dub April 26th Family Day. You've got Mother's Day, you've got Family Day. We need a good Family Day in the United States. And so, as our unsung hero, Austin advocates, we encourage you to get the word out, buy a ticket, buy a theater out. It's a strange thing being musicians making movies, because in music, and you guys have always been so kind to us, we have years to prove whether or not an album is a success. We can release multiple singles in multiple ways with multiple features. In feature films, in theaters, you have 72 hours. You have April 26th, 27th, and 28th to prove whether or not theaters keep it in, whether it's viable. And so if you are entertained by it, if you're intrigued by it, if you're excited by it, and I love how you said it, Tiffany, that filmmakers have made a film on your behalf to celebrate family, to celebrate motherhood, to celebrate faith, to celebrate migration. We invite you out on the 26th of April. But guys, thanks so much for putting up with us for the last 55 minutes. Can you give one more cheer for the great filmmakers here? My brother, the B- band will be out in about 5 minutes. We'll see you soon.